All right. Welcome to WeatherGod's Wisdom, where we talk about, we're just going to talk about the tropics today. So, we've got a couple of systems out here still. We've got actually quite a few. Post-tropical cyclone Umberto right here that has finally kind of gotten out of our hair. And we've got remnants of Imelda in here. You can see this rain is still going on, just not over Houston, thankfully. And got an interesting tropical wave here that we're going to talk about briefly. And then we've got Hurricane Jerry. And then we've got another tropical wave in here. And another tropical wave. And even one that's off frame that is supposedly going to develop into a hurricane midweek next week. So we'll have to watch that. Nothing's set in stone. Clearly there's plenty of water in here between the Cape Verde Islands and Florida and any potential island impacts. But right now we're going to look at Tropical Depression Imelda, which is no longer a tropical depression because its circulation has finally decayed into an open trough in the lower levels, and we've just had a horrific past 24 hours across southeast Texas in here, and we've had just catastrophic rain totals. If you pull up the storm total for this, Houston radar overestimated this a little bit. It's actually around 43 inches of rain that has fallen here near Beaumont, and you can see that most of the rain that has fallen is well above a foot, and it's just a really unfortunate situation has evolved here. And even, in Montgomery and Liberty counties here, and also now Liberty County on the southeastern side, and of course most of Jefferson County, have all experienced this extremely terrible flooding disaster here. And so we're glad that for the most part the rain should be over. There's a couple more events that are supposed to happen that will likely impact Houston and give them a little bit more rain. But overall, the worst is over. You could think that. And yeah, this is largely done. Still some rain here along far east Texas, some sprinkles in here, but nothing that is as serious as it was even this morning. So thankfully, Imelda for the most part is done. Now we're going to talk about Hurricane Jerry, which was upgraded to a Category 2 hurricane today and has a very good chance of, recurving out to sea. And this system has fought shear relatively well today and is really doing a fantastic job given the conditions that it is in. You can see right now, though, that the system's looking a little rough. Not a clear eye, not your typical Category 2 presentation, but you can also see just how close this is to the islands and how close this will be passing. We're hoping that, the system will turn north and avoid these islands. And if you look at the recent recon data, you can see that they found extrapolated pressures of 976 millibars. So this is still a deepening system. If you go back to the track of the recon data, you can see that, the center is largely moving just north of west. And we are hoping that this turn occurs sooner rather than later, because this would be a very bad hurricane if it were to make it to the islands. And this is why even the smallest deviation west would bring much stronger winds ashore. And thankfully, the National Hurricane Center track is pretty certain that this is not going to touch the islands, and that it likely will not be, catastrophically strong when it gets here. I know we had Irma a couple years ago that just absolutely decimated these islands. But one thing I want to point out is that the intensity forecast for the system has been pretty bad. And that's not a cost on the National Hurricane Center because they've done a pretty good job with what they've been given. The problem is that the synoptics for the system do not favor the intensification that is ongoing because there are numerous areas of shear. You can even see on the storms that are forming here how quickly they get their tops shaven off, and there's lots of shear in here. The problem is that the system has defied the odds, essentially. And if you go out to the water vapor imagery here, you can see that there's a upper level low that's been shearing the northern side of the system, but it has remarkably not had a ton of problems with dealing with this. And you can see that shear is going to begin to increase here associated with this tropical waves anticyclone. But if it continues west, which is kind of disturbing that if it would continue to defy the National Hurricane Center's track, because the National Hurricane Center has it going generally west-northwest, and if you look, you can see that it should be going north of west, but right now it's moving just a little barely to the northwest. This is largely moving west, and so the possibility, since it is a stronger system, that it could move a little further west is largely due, I'm going to go back here, so forgive me for, surfing through the web. But, and as I explain this, so if you go to the upper level dynamics here, you can tell there's a ridge right in here that is in place over Jerry. And this actually did a pretty good initialization by the GFS today. I'm pretty impressed. But you can see this upper level ridge is just out ahead of it and is also working on shearing the system. And so you can see here, there's not a ton of organization going along with the system. And that's largely due to shear in the upper levels being both from the west and from the east. So this is not a good environment, but it somehow has, maintained this structure today. And the GFS has it weakening through this period, but it still is strengthening. The recon literally just went through there and found a deeper system than it was at 982 millibars, and they found 976 millibars as they were exiting the system. So this is clearly a stronger system than forecast. And so what's difficult about this is that a stronger system would feel this upper level shear environment a little more. And actually, you can see if you have a stronger system here, the winds are largely out of the north and east that are pressing on the system. And if you look at the water vapor loop here, you can see the upper level ridge that is above this upper level low that's kind of decaying is starting to form. It is going to be pushing this largely to the south and west, and will have more influence if the storm is stronger. And the storm is stronger. However, we don't know how long it's going to stay that strong. And so it all depends. If we have a weaker storm, say, in 18 hours, then obviously it will be passing north. But if we have a stronger storm, and again, we're going to look at the sounding here, most of the steering is out of the northeast. And so this flow would trend to wind more, or in this situation, if the storm continues to intensify. And we're seeing that. It is still intensifying, but it has kind of leveled off for now because of some core issues, and you can see that with the lower level clouds. And this is kind of concerning for the overall track. And I'm going to look up WeatherNerds.org and look at the European ensemble forecasts for Jerry. And you can see there's still a patch in here that, take the system, and keep in mind that this patch has initialized the system as a stronger hurricane than the other systems that have it initialized as a tropical storm. But you can see the stronger patch takes it further south, and this is significant because look at where they take it. Very close to the United States. And this is a decreasing population, so it's more likely that we get something that goes out to sea. However, we don't know exactly what it is going to do. We've had this problem with Dorian, and even look at the 72-hour spread. This is pretty significant for the European model. And a lot of models today have gotten a little further to the south and west and have made the turn a little more sharp. But look at how they've initialized the system. As a tropical storm. This is a Category 2 hurricane. So, obviously, there will be a lot to figure out in the next few days, and you can see the European model. If we kind of surf through this a little bit, I'm going to wait. All credit goes to WeatherGod's.com, by the way, but see, they have a weaker system here, and we're going to go to the H-Wharf real fast, because they've actually done pretty well with the intensity of the system. So, and they still have it intensifying, but as it, gets closer to the islands, it's fluctuating in intensity. And you can see, let's go ahead and loop this, that the H-Wharf generally takes this a little closer to the Bahamas than the rest of the models before turning it out to sea. And the consensus today has been that it is going out to sea. However, the possibility is still there, however small it may be, that it does, in fact, miss the turn and does continue generally northwestward. And that would be as the result of a weaker system. We kind of have to watch this as it moves further west to see if this is still going to weaken as much as it is forecast to weaken, because as most of the models take it, they do have it weakening down all the way to almost a tropical storm, and any deviation above that would allow it to feel a higher level ridge. And thankfully it is not catastrophically strong, because it would be treading pretty dangerously close to some of these islands. And so right now we're kind of just watching Jerry, and do have tropical storm watches up for the northern islands, and that is a good call by the National Hurricane Center, because this storm could pass pretty close. And of course, in the 5-day track, you do have almost a direct impact on Bermuda, and still a lot to figure out here, but I believe that's it. Oh wait, no, I didn't talk about this thing. Okay, so this system is going to be dropping quite a bit of rain over the island of Hispaniola and maybe some of Puerto Rico, as this system kind of generally just drifts to the west. And this is a tragic event, because this is going to be having a lot of moisture drawn onshore due to the general upper level flow here that is going to move most of this, and to shear this system a little bit, and as it works its way to the west. And so we could have a lot of rain over Haiti and the Dominican Republic as time goes on, and that would be really bad. And I don't think this is going to develop, and I don't think the National Hurricane Center thinks this is going to develop. If you look at the National Hurricane Center, you see that in the 5-day outlook, clearly not going to develop. This has a very limited window, has a 10% chance of development, and we've got a lot of other stuff to watch. I'm not going to cover that tonight because it has not formed yet, and honestly right now I'm more concerned about Jerry and the aftermath of Imelda and our dude here near Hispaniola. Even though it is not a tropical cyclone, it is going to be producing quite a bit of rain and will be probably pretty destructive and very unfortunate for these countries, because they are pretty poor and don't really have the means to deal with an event like this. And I mean, you could be talking about maybe 20 to 30 inches of rain over most of the islands here, and that's very unfortunate. So, prayers out to them, and have a good evening, and thanks for watching.